Welcome back to She Leads Confidently. This is episode 112. I'm Karen Barner, your host. She Leads Confidently has been on hiatus since about early December. I kind of couldn't figure out which way to go with it. I lost my way. And if you follow me, you know I'm pretty brutally honest, maybe to a fault, but I kind of lost my way as to what I was helping women with until I realized my whole purpose in life is to help women discover who they are. And that's what I lost. I lost who I was. I had spent so long being Karen Barner, the CEO of an assisted living association, or Karen Barner, the mother, the wife, that I lost who Karen Barner was. What was I good at? What did I love doing? What don't I like doing? I kind of got doing all this stuff, and I thought, what is on my plate that I don't want to do anymore? That doesn't bring me joy. And I think women, we get to a certain point where we need to start focusing more on ourselves. Because when you focus on yourself, your work life balance, everything will start falling into place. And a lot of it takes shadow work. I've done a lot of shadow work, and over the past year and a half, I've done an amazing amount of shadow work. I'm sure if you follow me, you heard the story about driving home from a wedding shower. I got stuck in this horrible storm, pulled off to the side of the road. 45 minutes later, I live in a desert, so you can see the rain coming, and I could see the brilliant, beautiful sun coming. And when the sun came, it was like I noticed something changed within me, but I wasn't quite sure what it was, and it took a while for me to realize that I shifted from the ambition, the drive, you got to win, 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 push, 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 to meaning. What does it all mean? And I have spent over a year trying to figure out, what does this all mean? I wrote shadow work, I'm a poor pointer, shadow work for women leaders and prompts, available on Amazon, shameless plug, because I think shadow work is so important. But even after I had done it for so long, I still hadn't gotten to the core of what do I really want. When you're a wife and a mother, sometimes you get caught into jobs that suit the purpose. And Arizona Alpha fit me like a glove. I couldn't have asked for a more perfect job for me, something that I could build and grow and lead people and help guide people. But at the same time, I was also trying to transform everybody, which is kind of awkward. I'd be talking to a legislator, and this happened, I can't tell you how many times. I'd be talking to a legislator, and all of a sudden we'd be going down the path of their childhood and why they think the way they do. And I finally had to step back and say, that's what makes my heart sing, is helping people. So the podcast is back. It is going to go back into more of a interview format, because I love interviewing people and hearing their story. Because everything in your life that you have is due to the story you tell yourself. So if you look around, and I'm in my home office, if you look around and you think, it is really packed with books, I have books everywhere, then the story I'm telling myself is I love to read, I love to grow, I love to learn. But I can also think, it's pretty clutterish in here. So does that mean my mind, I'm cluttered? I take that to mean I'm cluttered, and I need to unclutter and become more targeted. So when we hear people's stories, we find out what drives them, what motivated them to do what they do. Why are they in the jobs they're at? How's their family life? I love getting to the core of people to understand why people do what they do. Because I always tell you, you need to ask 3 questions. Who am I? Who do I want to be? And how do I get there? And I've spent the past year asking myself that very question. So there's 3 very questions. Who am I really at my core? And the first couple answers that pop into your head, that's not your answer. That's your brain being like, we're not going to do this. We're not doing a deep dive here. And so it throws out, I forget what they call it when it's fake stuff, but it throws up fake stuff. And as you dive deeper and deeper and deeper, you get to the core of who you are. But then you got to ask yourself, well, why aren't I being that? And, I hate to admit this. I really, really hate to admit this. But I was a people pleaser on steroids. So if I had this great idea and I would sit in a board meeting and I'd tell them and people would disagree, instead of standing up for what I believed in, I'd be like, okay. And I have somebody right now in my life that, he was like, you kind of go home and get mad and then come back. And I was like, I don't go home and get mad. I go home and I think, because I've listened to all the viewprints. But people pleasers are too afraid to stand up and give their opinion. And it's usually because you have some kind of trauma in your past life, past, whether it's, sexual, physical. Maybe you had a domineering mother, father. Maybe you had a teacher in third grade that was really mean to you. In first grade, I had my aunt. That was my first grade teacher, and she was so mean to me. My family, we still laugh about it, which is so sad that we still laugh about how mean Aunt Sarah was, because we all had her. And it was like, my parents have passed now, and it's like, why didn't you, I was the youngest, why didn't you just say this one gets a pass and doesn't have to have the mean Aunt Sarah? I mean, but that permeated my whole schooling, because I didn't like school. I didn't like being embarrassed. I didn't like being laughed at. I didn't like, but it turned me into a people pleaser, and also any kind of trauma or abuse turns you into a people pleaser as well. And so I had to learn how to say no and stick to no. And that's taken some time too. So, and that's what I help women with. I help you guys find your shadows. What's churning here? What is making you a people pleaser? Maybe you don't even know you are. I didn't feel like I was worthy. I told the story for how long, and if you followed me, I've told the story that Arizona Alpha, and it's fact, it's truth. Arizona Alpha was started by 3 millionaires and a billionaire. Found out later it was actually 2 millionaires and 2 billionaires, but that doesn't flow off the tongue. So we're sticking with 3 millionaires and a billionaire. And me. And I tell the story, they're like, you'd be thrilled to make $40,000, so we're going to give you the job. But what I was doing is I was denigrating my talent. I was denigrating the hard work I had put into to get into that room. I worked hard. I was working full-time at my paying job and pretty close to full-time starting Arizona Alpha without pay, because I loved the cause. I believed in the cause. I didn't realize at the time that I'm a natural builder. I like building things. I like launching things. I like helping people. So it fit into all that, but I didn't realize that until way downstream, that I was telling myself a bad narrative. Instead of telling a narrative of, I worked my ass off, and the 3 millionaires and the billionaires saw talent, and they saw a woman that will launch their dreams for them, that they can work with, that they can pour all their knowledge into me, and they poured all their knowledge into me so I could launch this association. And when I sat down with one of them, she's like, I don't know why you tell that story, because it wasn't like you were second or third pick. She goes, you were our first pick the minute you walked in the room. She said, the minute you walked into the big first meeting, we looked at you and thought, you're it. We could tell you were hungry, you were enthusiastic, people are drawn to you, all this stuff. But I was telling a bad story. So look at the stories you're telling yourself. Do they support you? Or do they denigrate you? Or do they support you to a point? And if they don't support you, retell the story. Your mind's a computer. I talk about this all the time. Your mind's a computer. Change your story, change your life. It's fact. Once I realized everything that was getting into my way over the past, 12, 13 months, I was able to change it. And I'm still working on changing it. There's still things that I want to do differently, because ambition isn't that important to me anymore. Building the largest podcast in the world isn't that important to me anymore. Writing books and being a best-selling author isn't that important to me. What's important to me is writing books that have an impact. And the way to have an impact is to be a best-selling author, because you got to sell the books. I want my shadow work book to have an impact. I want people to look at that and understand the very beginning is just kind of what the history of shadow work is, but then the rest of it is prompts. I want you to do a prompt every day. I get up every morning and do a shadow work prompt to get you thinking. I don't want to make kind of a difference. I want to make a profound difference. I want to help women leaders become the women they dream of. Because you think women leaders have their shit together. 90% of women leaders don't believe they're worthy. But here, this shocked me. 70% of men don't believe they're worthy. Because we're raised in a society where we're told we're not worthy, we're not good enough, we're not smart enough. Whether it's your math teacher who didn't think you were smart enough in math, or your gym teacher who didn't think you were athletic enough in athletics, or anything. So we get this pound, or you watch TV and you see these amazing women models, and you think, well, I'm never going to look like that. So, and we build these scripts. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I don't deserve to show up. I don't deserve good. Men are building the same script. It's just a different tone. That's what we got to eliminate. And that's what some of this podcast is going to do. I'm going to talk to some of these women that have had their scripts running, but now realize they are worthy, because you are worthy. You are exactly where you are because that's where you wanted to be. If you don't like where you are, change your script and move on. Move on to a better place. And I do coaching, so if you're interested in coaching, let me know. I don't think it's on my internet. On the internet, on the website, because it's, on a person-by-person basis. Because, I work full-time running an association. I want to help women understand how worthy you are, how great you are, and how you can become anything you want to become if you believe it. If you tell yourself that great story to be that person. And it involves healing shadows. It involves what's getting in your way. Why do you think you're not worthy? Why do you think you're not good enough, smart enough? Why do you think you shouldn't go to that happy hour? Why do you think people don't want you to go to that event? Of course they do. Of course they do. But you're telling yourself you're not. So we need to work on that. And we'll be working on that, y'all, on this podcast. If you're interested in being on my podcast, you can, depending on where you're watching this at, you can make a comment. If you're on Facebook or LinkedIn, just put a comment. If you're watching this on iTunes, and then pop over to my Facebook page or my LinkedIn page, Karen Barno, and just say, hey, I want to be on your podcast. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have a great time. It's just going to be fun. So I'm going to help you find your blue rose and step into your greatness. I want women to understand how amazing they are, how fantastic they are, and I want you to understand that the script that you were told as a child's bullshit. Just bullshit. When I was in 4th grade, I had a 4th grade teacher, still remember his name, Mr. Moscow. He didn't like women with bangs. So he made every girl cut their bangs. I went home, I was infuriated. I'm to my mother, that's not right. And my mother's like, you're right. It is wrong. And you shouldn't do that. But you know what? Is this the thing you want to die on? And I'm like, what do you mean? Is this what you want to die on? Is this the scene that you want to create to die on, this cross? Is this it? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, but you're going to run into bigger injustices. This is just the beginning. And I sat and I thought about it, and I thought, no, I will cut my bangs, but I will never forget that. I will never forget how powerless I felt. I will never forget how one person was able to control however many girls were in that class and have every one of us cut our bangs. And how he must have got off on that. But no more, because now I'm at a place, as I have been for years, where that's unacceptable. And now if somebody did that to one of our girls, if somebody did that to my daughter, I'd be in that school so fast. When my daughter was in school, they were probably so tired of seeing me, because they would tell her something and I'd be like, we're not going to tell her that. I went to parent-teacher meeting. They called my husband afterwards and said, she really doesn't need to come back. Because they were like, she's kind of has, I forget how they worded it, but she had trouble reading. And I'm like, everybody has trouble in some area. Hers just isn't, she's not good at reading. Don't worry, she'll be a great reader as she gets older. It's just not important to her. And the teacher's like, what are you talking about? We all have issues. She's a great reader now. Don't worry about it. Don't be telling her she's a bad reader. You're just putting it into her mind. You're telling her a bad story. See, that's where stories start. So anyway, welcome back to She Leads Confidently. We're going to have a great time. If you have any questions, let me know. If you want me to talk about any topics, put it in the comments, or put it over on LinkedIn. You can also catch me on TikTok if you're interested in my book, Shadow Work. It's over on Amazon. If you have anything at all, if you want to be on my show or anything at all, let me know. Have a great day, you guys. And here's to you finding your blue rose and leading with confidence.